All right, so prelim notables for UFC Fight Night, Andrade versus Blanchfield. Tapology, we don't actually have an official name for it, like UFC Fight Night 22, UFC Vegas 192B, like whatever it's going to be. This is what we got. Looking at the prelims and anything other than on the main card, what are you most looking forward to? I know that might be a stretch.
What am I most looking forward to out of this whole
Most
card?
fight you're most looking forward to, prelim notables,
All right, listen, I'm actually a huge Aaron Blanchfield fan, so if you've been watching this, you know that I'm a huge Aaron Blanchfield fan. Uh, I was looking forward to it more when it was Talia Santos. I think Jessica Andrade's a really hard fight for her.
Mhm.
I'm also looking forward to not sitting in front of my television and watching this from start to finish like I did last night. I don't know. This card, yeah, it leaves a lot to be desired. That's one way to put it. What are you most looking forward to?
Starting at 4 p.m. Eastern, so kind of while the day is going on next week. What am
Yeah.
I most looking forward to? Listen, there's some people on this that I think would be interesting to see. Nazim Sajikov is a guy who's had a pretty good kind of reputation coming into the UFC. Going in, I think we're going to be able to see. I think the UFC is looking for some potential finishes here. There's some overmatched opponents. We got OSP on the card, which typically means that he's probably not going to be in a super interesting fight. But with that being said, I'm going to get right into my first prelim lock, and that is going to be Felipe Lins over the guy I just mentioned, Ovens St. Peru. The reason for that is OSP is just not the guy that we maybe once knew him as. 26-16, 2-3 over his last five, 39 years old. Felipe Lins is definitely a little bit older too, 37 years old. Didn't realize he's creeping up there quite that much. But listen, OSP, we kind of know what we're going to get from him at this point. He's going to be methodical. He's going to be very defensive. He's not going to be going out there looking to necessarily finish the fight at this point in his career. He does have that win over Mauricio Shogun Hua. That was 9 months ago. We see where Shogun is now, and just obviously retiring and going to a split decision with a guy at that caliber, at that level. It's just it doesn't spell a lot of success for OSP at this point. He has the loss against Tanner Boser, the loss against Jamal Hill, which you don't hold him too much against. Alonzo Menafield, he did get a win against, but that was before, we kind of see Alonzo Menafield with Safe Saud and then have that rejuvenation of his career. He's got the split decision loss to Ben Rothwell a little under 3 years ago. For all of those reasons, I'm going to go with OSP. He's going to, I think Felipe Lins, he's going to go out there and he's going to try and finish the fight. He had a pretty decent fight with Marcin Prachnio, which I think is a little bit of a harder opponent. We'll see him later on the card, but he had a pretty decent fight with him, a little bit more of a harder opponent. And Felipe Lins, I think, will be able to go out there. Another loss to Tanner Boser, but he's got the loss to Andre Arlovsky. I think this guy, both of them are going to have chins. I don't think we're going to see a knockout. I think the safe bet is to take this one to go to decision, go to the distance. But I'm going to go with Felipe Lins to get it done, especially going to the distance, because I think he's just going to be a little bit more active, land a couple more shots. You're going to see OSP kind of backing up for the majority of the fight in that defensive stance. And I think just from the pure, optics of the fight, the judges are going to go with Felipe Lins. I just don't see OSP getting it done in the UFC at this point against anyone of considerable talent. And, Felipe Lins, coming from American Top Team, has a decent level of competition that he's fought before. So I'm going to go with Felipe Lins to get this one done on the prelims.
Yeah, I like that. Do you remember when OSP and Shogun Hua fought? Like, what was that, last year and a half ago?
Yeah, then 9 months ago. 9 months ago, actually.
Yeah. Wow. Feels a lot longer. I mean, almost as long as that fight felt. That was a long, boring fight. OSP is not that guy. All right, I'm just taking one. I'm going with Myra Bueno Silva over Lena Landsberg. I really like Bueno Silva's jiu-jitsu. She's won the majority of her fights by submission. She's really controlling on the ground, really good at snatching arms, and basically trying to break them with those arm bars, mean arm bars. Lena Landsberg is on a 3-fight skid, 3-2 over her last 5. Pretty disappointing for her, but I really like Bueno Silva's ability to, just get somebody on the ground and find a way to submit them. Yeah, take the arm. That's what she's really good at, especially in the first round. So, I mean, I'm probably gonna bet Bueno Silva by first round submission. I really like that, and I'm looking forward to
Mhm.
seeing what the odds are. But just last couple wins, Stephanie Egger, no slouch, 7-2. Wins over Jillian Robertson. It's all right. Who else we got on here? And she went to a nice draw with Montana De La Rosa.
Mhm.
Not that a draw is ever nice, but Montana De La Rosa is really good on the ground, really good wrestler. And the fact that those two women came to a draw together is impressive for Bueno Silva.
Went the
So
distance with Man and Firo.
yeah, which
French fighter
speaks to her
who's
striking ability too.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or
So
ability at least to get in there with someone fighting or someone with really good striking coming from shoot the box, going to have a little bit of a reach advantage, generally the same size here. The age, I think, is something that's definitely important to note with basically 41-year-old Lena Landsberg, elbow queen on that
true.
3-fight skid. I think she's something like 2-3 or maybe even worse inside of the UFC. The elbow queen is. Listen, a lot of people are going with Bueno Silva to take this one. And I'm right there with you. I'm going to go with you. I think maybe, I could definitely see a submission getting locked up here. Traditionally, it looks like Lena Landsberg has been good enough to get herself out of those positions. But again, at 41 years old, it could fall off. The wheels could totally fall off at any time.
Yeah.
Myra Brenna Silva to get the job done, I think is definitely your safe pick and your prelim lock.
Yeah, I like it. Just speaking of that, 40 to 41, we saw it with Glover, right? Like Glover in the Yuri fight looked like a young spry, not young, but he was like spry
Mm-hmm.
and he was moving well. And then you see him fight Jamal Hill, and it's looking like somebody didn't grease the joints up in a while. I think it would be something if Lena Landsberg, the elbow queen, got her elbow wrenched out this weekend. Not like I don't want to see her arm get broken or anything, but that's elbow queen. That elbow's not feeling so right after you get an arm bar from Bueno Silva. All right, you got any more for us?
Yeah, I got two other quick ones, and they involve
Oh
some people
shit!
who are lesser known inside of the UFC. I'm going to be taking concrete Clayton Carpenter here, 6-0 over UFC newcomer Juan Camilo Ronderas. I mean, honestly, I shouldn't say against newcomer because they're both kind of newcomers, but getting the decision win against Edgar Shairez on the Contender Series 5 months ago, earning that contract, and then coming out, just looking at his 5 on in, has some finishes here, and not the best competition, obviously, but the guy is only 6-0. Very early in his career, 26 years old, 125 pounds. He's going to have a little bit of the size advantage here, fighting out of the MMA lab. And then you have Juan Camilo Ronderas. Listen, 4-1 in the UFC, has had some major time off in between those fights, 3 years ago, not against the best, competition. And turn around, and David Dvorak gets submitted inside of the UFC. I wish I knew what was the deal, how he got into the UFC at 4-0. With only 4 fights in his back pocket at 125 pounds, and then missing weight for the 125-pound fight against David Dvorak, still finding himself getting submitted. I like Clayton Carpenter here. He's from a good gym. He's exciting. He's a little bit younger. Juan Camilo, he's taken some time off. Definitely could have, vastly improved. But just from everything that I'm seeing here, and especially the Tapology folks, the gurus over there, I like Clayton Carpenter to get this one done.
Yeah,
He's
I like
just a
that a
little bit
lot.
faster and a little bit more technical, and I think he's got a little bit better of a future in front of him. Juan Camilo, I think, is honestly, I don't know where they're finding and what the qualifications are to get a 125 or to bring him up to the UFC. No Contender Series, no tough, just 4-0 against questionable competition. Throw him in there, get submitted, and then he gets a return contract maybe to prove himself. We'll see what happens. And then the other one I have is going to be Nazim Sadyakov over Evan Elder. Nazim Sadyakov is the Black Wolf, and he's 5-0 in his last 5, coming off of Cage Fury, so definitely nothing to scoff at there, getting the decision, and he's only really getting better as time goes on. Now listen, Cage Fury, these guys 0-0, 2-0, but he's looked really good when he got on the Contender Series 5 months ago, finishing 9-1. Ahmad Suzahil Hassanzada, I should really just take a break from saying these names. It's getting tiresome. But listen, he went out there. He looked really good. He's getting the finishes. You have Elvin Elder, who went out in his last fight. Went to decision with Preston Parsons, which isn't terrible. But I just think that the level of competition that we're talking about here, Marcus Australia, yeah, you got the knockout, but so did 15 other people. Paris Padilla, low quality of opponents, 6-6, going to decisions. I just feel like Evan Elder at this point, the phenom, is a little bit of a exaggeration when you think about the skill set that this guy has coming into the fight. His last fight 9 months ago, coming off the loss. I'm again. You also wonder, guys 7-0. I guess that's why you get him into the UFC here. But you would think that the UFC might have a little bit better way of parsing out that talent before somebody, you just throw him in on the card. Like, what's the point of the Contender Series if you're just going to take guys who face subpar competition and just offer them a contract? Why would anybody want to go on the Contender Series at that point? Like, I know it's just another avenue in, but it seems like the criteria for allowing people to get into the UFC is just so warped. Some people have to go through a whole 8, 9, 10 week camp with other people in a house just to have a shot at going to the tough. And then the ones who win, they get a contract, but also some of the ones who lose also get a contract. So like, what the fuck is the point of the show? And then you have the Contender Series where one fight can get you in, but sometimes people win the fight and they don't get in. Sometimes they do win the fight. Like, yeah, sometimes people lose the fight and then they get in, or they lose and then they take some time off, go fight a can, and then they get in. Like, there's just really no basis for criteria for any of this. No. I'm going Nazim Sajikov. I think he's the better fighter. I think he's got more power in his hands. I think he's more diverse at this point. This fight is happening at 155 pounds. You have Evan Elder coming down from 170, trying out a new weight class. I just think it'll feel a little bit weird for him. And having some, he's been, I think he's been stunned a few times in his career. So coming down, I don't think that that's necessarily going to help his chances there. And who knows how that's going to be. That's a big amount of weight to drop. He's 5'10", so he's not necessarily undersized for 170, but we'll see how this goes. And, Killcliff FC, both these guys from good gyms. I'm just going with Black Wolf Nazim Sajikov, and so are the people on Tapology, and I think the knockout is good here. Nazim has those hands. So those are the prelim locks.
Yeah, I like those picks a lot, especially the Clayton Concrete Carpenter pick, or Concrete Clayton Carpenter. I mean, that's a blue collar name if you ever heard it, right? Concrete and Carpenter in one name. This guy, if he wasn't in the UFC, he'd probably be smoking cigs on a construction site with a name like that. But I like that, and especially against a guy like Juan Camilo Ronderos. Interesting enough, Tapology has Juan Camilo Ronderos as the 87th best flyweight in the world, but Clayton Carpenter is the number 1 flyweight in the state of Arizona. I don't know. I guess that's like Tapology voting and everything. You got to be really deep into this sport to go in and vote for people state by state. And then the other thing, another point I want to make is like, we should have known that the UFC really has at this point, no credibility as to who gets into the UFC, towards the bottom. When the international man of mystery got in, and that is Oscar Mazgarov, whatever his name was.
Oscar Mazharov, yeah.
Yeah, we should have known that there was literally no rhyme or reason to who gets into the UFC when that guy got in. The man that used 4 different names throughout a fighting career, and didn't change his look once except for a giant neck tattoo. What's going to make me more distinguishable? A giant neck tattoo. And now I'll never be able to change my name again because I have this thing. But that's when we should have known. There's no reason to how people get into the UFC. It's not even merit based. I don't think. I think they just looked at a guy like Oscar Mazharov and they were like, "Oh, this guy looks cool." If he
and also he had a much better record when they signed him than when he actually went to fight, and you realize, oh shit, this guy's record is actually so warped. I think he was something like 23-3, and then by the time the fight started, he was 15-9.
Yeah. It was all padded, and then people started to figure out, wait, this is the same guy. What was it? I don't even remember his different aliases, but this guy was like a super spy in the MMA world, going country to country, changing his name back and forth. I don't think that they really do their due diligence when, maybe I'll just go fight a bunch of cans and then get signed to the UFC and change my name and shit 4 times.
Yeah, if you can get on some shady promotions with things that are kind of hard to back up and fact check, you might find yourself in a light heavyweight bout and being like, what, kind of looking like what's the meme where it's like a like a housewife who's sitting there with like her gloves on. She's like, how did I end up here? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Just find yourself on some shady promotions, and then one thing leads to another, and you have Ali Abdelaziz sitting in front of you trying to sign you.
Oh, that would be sweet. I can't promise that it would look like an episode of Bully Beatdown. Me being like the bully in that case, fighting,
Yeah.
a fully fledged MMA fighter. But yeah, I mean, there is a path to get to the UFC, and it's change your name and join a shady promotion. Change your name like 6 times. If you like, anytime you lose, change your name. Just change your name and get a new tattoo. All right, you ready to jump into this main card?
All right, let's do it. Oh, actually.